Hey everybody, Ben here for the Bonehead podcast, and welcome to Blood Bowl 7's rosters, Ogres. So, Ogres are one of the best teams in Blood Bowl because they are Ogres, therefore they suffer from Bonehead. But for completeness' sake, we're covering every team in Blood Bowl and putting together some of the most fun and or competitive rosters for Blood Bowl 7s using the new rules for 7s that landed in the Deathzone book. It's only taken us about a year to get round to it. Anyway, we are going to have a look at some 600k rosters for league, for tournament, whatever, for the biggest, best guys out there, Ogres. Okay, so Ogres in 7s are a very interesting roster. Ogres, when they're not rolling 1s, are an absolute nightmare for your opponents. This roster here gets you 3 big guys most of the time. Okay, you can flex the roster, there's a lot of things you can do, but gives you that potential to have that amount of high strength with Mighty Blow, with decent agility on a 4+, with good strength, with decent movement on a movement 5, and the only nega trait is Bonehead. These guys don't even have Loner, so if you can find a way to get a reroll onto your roster, they're good as gold, which is brilliant. Now, the downside of them is that they have Bonehead, so every time you want to do anything with an Ogre, there's a 1 in 6 chance of them letting you down. So, it's definitely a balance thing. Ogres are a stunty team. They play like a stunty team. If the dice are on your side, you are going to dominate. And in 7s, movement 5 is massive. And being able to blitz with one of these guys is basically going to give you 2 dice against any target. And if you are running 2 or 3 Ogres on a 7s pitch, your opponent is going to have nowhere to go because you've also got Gnoblars. Now, one of the downsides of Ogres in 7s is that you can only have 11 players on your roster. Gnoblars die. They die a lot. And normally you can take Riotous Rookies, but not in 7s. And this is one of the biggest changes from old 7s to new 7s, is the different inducements that you can and can't take. Ogres cannot take Riotous Rookies, which means you have got to bring your own dudes and nobody else. So it's definitely an interesting one, and a big flag, I guess, has to be the FAQ from May about throwing teammate. If you throw a Gnoblar and it hits any other player, it will be a turnover regardless of anything else. Now, in the before times, you could just throw them and then kick them and just try and take out people. It was basically bowling in Blood Bowl, which was awesome. That FAQ changes everything, so when it comes to Ogres, you really only want to be throwing at the end of your turn or in a desperate play for a 1-turn touchdown. I guess the other thing is that Gnoblars are really good. I know they're strength 1 and their armor, I don't know, 2.5, but that movement 5 with sidestep, with stunty, with titchy, with that edge 3+ means that not only do they dodge around everywhere on a 2+, but sidestep and dodge keeps them alive way more than they have any right to be. And this is going to be really, really, really fun because your opponent is going to take a block and you're going to lead them on a merry chase. If they've got a big guy, one Gnoblar can tie up that big guy for maybe a couple of turns. It's brilliant. Rat Ogres, Gnoblars are Rat Ogre Bane. You just feed one. Now, in the olden times when the Bloodthirster was around, you'd take a Gnoblar and give it to the Bloodthirster, and the Bloodthirster would just chase it around in a rage circle. Actually, Gnoblars can do that with most big guys. Most big guys don't have tackle. Most big guys don't have block. Therefore, they're looking for the open star, and actually you can use that sidestep to your advantage. Plus, when you need to go running for the end zone with 2 rushes, that's 7 squares, and you're looking for anything but 1s. Now, the weaknesses of this team is that everybody is movement 5, so you are not fast, and if you want to score a 2-turn touchdown, it's going to take you, it's going to take you a good few go for it to get there, so it's not a fast team. Agility is limited. Now, Ogres are fine. On an Edge 4+, they can still do stuff. It's not bad, but it is not reliable at all, and the Gnoblars are very fragile, like I said, and this is 7, so you're going to have 7 players on the pitch, 5 or 4 of them are going to be Gnoblars. That's targets for your opponent, and if your opponent takes out a few Gnoblars after a couple of drives, you may be down on players. And that's okay for most teams, but if you are down on players with this team, you are in a bit of a situation. Okay, so let's look at some Ogre rosters for Blood Bowl 7s. So we've gone with the 3 Ogre build here, which has got 3 Ogres in it. We've got 1 Run Punter, 2 Ogre Blockers, and 5 Noblar heroes. If Halflings could be hopefuls, I think these guys deserve to be called heroes. So this roster comes in at 500k and has 8 players on it. This is the fun part about 7s. There's a few things you can do to flesh out your roster, and even though you've lost Riotous Rookies, which would be an absolute shoo-in at this point, there's some other things you can buy. So assistant coaches in 7s are brilliant. It's +1 to the brilliant coaching roll, basically. And when a 7 is rolled on the kickoff table, you and your opponent dice off, you add your assistant coaches, and the winner gets a reroll. So adding coaches onto your roster is a really good way to sometimes grab an extra reroll. The other thing you can do here is you've got 500k, you can add up to 3 Noblars to max out at 11 players. Definitely worth considering taking some Noblars. But the reason I've capped this at 500 and basically allowed you to pick your kind of topping to this roster, Desperate Measures are in 7s. And if you've not used Desperate Measures, basically it's a 50k inducement and you roll a d8. And you get something cool. It can be unlimited fouls for a turn. It can be a delay to one of your... There's a brilliant one which is like hungover. One of your opponent's players of your choice, I think, doesn't set up for the first drive. Or you get a wizard. It's really good. It is absolutely swingy. Some of them are great, some of them are not great. And you only really get one pop at it, but it is a really fun narrative way to do it. You can get really lucky and start this roster with 3 Noblars, so 11 players and 1 Desperate Measure, and that Desperate Measure can be a wizard, an actual honest-to-God wizard. So you kind of rock up with 700k's worth of stuff. It's really cool, it's really swingy, it's really narrative, and it adds a lot of stuff to 7s. The consistent play here, I think, is maxing out on Noblars and then taking a few coaches on top just to try and egg those rerolls over. Now, if you're playing League, when it comes to 7s, it's all random skills anyway. But if you are playing an expansion league like 7 Super Series or in a tournament setting like the SCA, you will get access to some skills. And Ogres being tier 3 normally means you get 3 or 4 skills, which is massive in 7s. So the Runt Punter here, if you've got a couple of secondaries, any big guy, block is brilliant on them. They're throwing a lot of dice, that keeps it consistent, and if your opponent can gang up on them, block will keep them standing. Pro is also excellent in this format. Basically, Pro allows you to pick 1 dice after you've rolled it, and on a 3+, you re-roll that dice. So if you're making a 2-die block and it's push both down, Pro the both down, okay? And if you're taking an agility roll or a Bonehead test, 3+, you can re-roll it. That's going to keep your Ogres consistent. But if you don't have secondaries, or maybe you want to save your secondaries for a different player, Leader on the Runt Punter is going to get you a reroll. It's a primary skill, it's a brilliant skill, it gives you a reroll for the team, and as far as skills go, that one skill is essentially worth 140,000 gold pieces. So if you take this roster with 11 Noblars and a Desperate Measure, and you roll a wizard, and your Runt Punter's got Leader, you're kind of rocking up with 840,000 to a 600k match. That's a bit of an exaggeration, I guess, but it works. Big guys also benefit from Guard. Guard, especially on this roster, because if you can find a way to get a 2-die block with a Noblar, not only does that earn you mega street cred, and it's the most insulting thing in the world when an opponent's player gets blocked down by a Noblar, but Guard's going to help you. It also means that Guard's going to be useful to give you the extra strength needed to take on a big guy on your opponent's team. You know, maybe they're rocking up with Khemri, you've got some Tomb Guardians, or you've got a Rat Ogre on your opponent's side. Actually, that Guard is just going to mean that you can keep pounding face in the biggest kaiju combat situation, which is very nice. Or Juggernaut, because blitzing around is very good and Juggernaut will keep you standing. Honestly, with the exception of Leader, all of those skills we talked through work well for Ogre blockers in 7s. The only other thing I would say is you do kind of want to prioritize Leader on that Runt Punter if it's allowed in your format. It's the best skill. When it comes to standard Ogres, Break Tackle is also really worth considering. It allows you to add +2 to your dodge because you're strength 5 after you've rolled it. So if your Ogre needs to get out into the open, it's a 2+ open field dodge. That's the best dodge you can get. So Break Tackle is definitely one to think about. Noblars, however, I really wouldn't worry about giving them skills if you get a choice. If you do get a choice, then actually a random general is brilliant on a Noblar. Kick is great, block, wrestle, dauntless is great, frenzy is hilarious and you're going to be in a bad situation. Sprint and sure feet, though, are the regular skills that you might want to give them. Maybe even sneaky git. Your ogres are going to be dropping guys down, and actually being able to wander around with a 15k piece and put the boot in is going to be really beneficial. And a slight twist on that roster, which, spoiler alert, I do obviously think is the best roster, you can drop that second ogre and start with a rostered reroll. So this will give you more consistency in your team. This has only got 7 players because you have literally taken that 140k's worth of ogre and bought 140k's worth of reroll. It's literally just a swap. So everything we've just talked about applies. You probably don't need to prioritize leader quite so much. This one will allow your 2 ogres to basically be more efficient and more effective. It's an interesting one. 3 ogres, 3 boneheads a turn. That means every other turn you're going to suffer a bonehead, right? 2 ogres, that means every 3rd turn you're going to suffer a bonehead. So it does make them a little bit more reliable in a way that more of your turns are going to go the way you want them to, but you will miss out on that strength. And what it will do is give you a bit more vulnerability when it comes to the fact that the rest of your team are made of paper tissues and wishes, and that's kind of a recipe for a fire. So watch out for that, but you can do it if you want to be consistent, and then it just means you've got 2 ogres, which, to be fair, any team with 2 ogres is a bit terrifying. And we've got to do a fun roster here as well. So House Elf United, you get 11 Noblars, 2 rerolls, 445k. So ignore the 8 there. That's actually 11 players. We have maxed out the roster here, and we've got 155 left over, which can be a Masterchef. Well, it can't be a Masterchef. What you have to do is swap those 2 rerolls, and you can buy a Masterchef instead. Now, why would you want to do that? This is really fun. The Masterchef is really good in 7s. The Masterchef allows you to roll 3d6 at the beginning of a half. Every 4+ steals an opponent's reroll. No, that's not true. Every 4+ gets you a reroll. Every 4+ forces your opponent to lose a team reroll. Now in 7s, if an opponent has spent 100, 120, 140k on a reroll and you just bamf it away, then actually you are really restricting them and you're really helping to win that TV battle. The downside here is that even if you do steal their rosters, their players are going to be significantly better than yours. So you can, for 20k, buy that, turn those 2 rerolls that you will always get into a potential of 3 rerolls per turn. The good thing here in 7s is 3 dice, you only really need to roll 1 4+ in most situations to obliterate your opponent's rerolls. So it's kind of the bar is a little bit lower in 7s than 11s. Now, there's a couple of other things you can do instead. You can buy coaches, you can't buy any more players, so you're going to end up with basically 1 or 2 desperate measures. Even because we've kept it to this point of 445, you can pick up a 3rd reroll, or you can just go 3 desperate measures, and that's 3 chances of a d8 to roll the wizard. You can only roll the wizard once, which is a shame because it would be awesome to rock up with 11 Noblars and 3 wizards, but actually it means you're going to rock up with 11 Noblars, a wizard. You're going to force one of your opponent's players to miss a turn, and then you're going to have a banana skin to force an opponent to fall over. House Elf United, with a mixture of their own rerolls or Masterchef to undo the opponent's turn, and then those desperate measures to add a ton of narrative twistiness to it. This is a really interesting roster, and absolutely it's not going to be brilliant. Like, you are going to die regularly, but it is actually quite fun, and I've run the 11 Noblar build on Blood Bowl 2 for I don't know, a lot of games, and it is just infuriating. The other twist you can put on this one is you can drop one of those rerolls and take an ogre, so you can have 1 ogre, 10 Noblars, and then what, 2, 3 desperate measures as well. Definitely drops in the power, but I love the way it spikes up in the randomness. Okay, but I do think that this is the best roster for 7s. You get the max amount of ogres. You can't afford any more ogres within that 600k because of the way you have to have at least 7 players. But this gives you that flexibility to really choose as a coach how you want to go with this. Yeah, the ogres are going to let you down, and yeah, you don't have a reroll, but actually it's 7s. 1 reroll gets gone very quickly. So you've got three big guys. Some of the best big guys in Blood Bowl, especially in 7s, and you've got a screen of Noblars. You've got 100k left to do, and I would take one desperate measure, 3 Noblars to max it out to 11. You've got a bench, you've got the little guys that can foul, and you've got a 1 in 8 chance of a wizard as well. I love ogres in 7s, and you may see some ogre magic in 7s coming up soon. Just saying. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up. Let me know which of these rosters you like and why you should be running ogres in 7s. And we'll be back soon with more Blood Bowl content. Happy blocking. Thanks very much for watching. We really appreciate your support. If you want to help support the channel even further, please like and subscribe, or come join us on our Patreon. We have early access to content. We get loads of feedback from you guys, and we try and do competitions as much as we can. Or you can get yourself some Bonehead podcast merch on our Spreadshirt site. So if you want to support a team, especially for the Bonehead Championship, you can pick up a shirt, a mug, things like that. It all helps support the channel, and we really appreciate it. Anyway, links below. Thank you very much. Happy blocking.